Everything you think you know about the limits of your life is about to be questioned, and not by vague platitudes, but by a simple, repeatable test you can do right now. This is unlocking the secret quantum law that transforms your reality forever. Not a slogan, not a promise written in stone. A practical framework you can feel, practice, and measure, starting within minutes. If you stay with me through this segment, you'll do an exercise that most people call weird the first time, and then they can't unsee the result. You'll discover a sensation between your hands that acts like the first small crack in the shell of what you thought reality was. From there, we build a method, how to intentionally direct that sensation, how to amplify it through your biology, and how to use repetition to make measurable change in days and weeks. Think of this as a laboratory for your lived experience, not a sermon or a magic trick. We'll use simple tools, common sense safety, and a model I call the secret quantum law. A synthesis of body, mind, and emergent ideas from modern science framed for practical use. Before you hesitate, you don't need to believe. You only need to observe. Start by bringing your attention to this sentence. Wherever you are, make sure your hands are free and your environment is reasonably calm. Sit or stand comfortably. If there's background noise, that's fine. We'll work with what you have. This exercise is safe and non-invasive. It's accessible whether you're a total skeptic or someone who does breathwork every morning. The goal is immediate sensory data. You will journal what you notice. That's the scientific bit. Record, compare, repeat. Rub your palms together briskly, like you're warming them. Do this for about 10 seconds. Feel the friction, the warmth building where skin meets skin. Now, slowly separate your hands until they are roughly the width of your chest apart. Somewhere around 6 to 8 inches is a good estimate, but use what feels natural. Hold them there, palms facing each other, fingers relaxed. Relax your jaw, soften the eyes, breathe normally. Do not imagine anything special, just be curious. Notice the space between your palms. Is there a small, almost imperceptible resistance, a sense of pressure, a tingling, a coolness, or a warmth? Do your fingertips feel like they are aware of the air between them? If you detect anything at all, write it down in one sentence. I felt da. If you notice nothing, write that too. I felt nothing. Either outcome is valid data. Now close your eyes and try again. Keep your hands at the same distance, but this time focus on your breath for 3 slow cycles. On the third out-breath, imagine a light or intention moving from your chest into the space between your palms. You don't need to believe the image. Just observe any change in sensation. After a minute, open your eyes and compare. Any difference? Record it. If you feel something, even subtle, you have experienced the first layer of what this system works with, a perceivable field that responds to attention, physiology, and intention. If you didn't feel anything, you've just completed a valid control test. Both are important. We are not trying to convince anyone with rhetoric. We are collecting observations. A quick practical note. Sensitivity varies. People who work with their hands, people who have done meditative practices, or people who are simply aware of subtle sensation often report clear effects. Others need repetition. That's exactly the point. Measurement over time. After you log this first trial, mark the time. In the framework I'll outline later, you'll retest and look for patterns at 5 minutes, 24 hours, 7 days, and 30 days. For now, drop a quick comment below. Just 2 words. I felt it, or tuning in. That small act creates a trace. It's a communal data point. One call to action right now. I'll wait. Good. Take a breath. If you felt something, you probably noticed an odd little stiffness or a subtle current. If not, you noticed nothing, which is equally informative. Either way, you've just done what most people never do. You attuned to sensation and recorded it, the raw material of transformation. Why this works, at least at the level of experience, has a few overlapping explanations that are largely uncontroversial. Your body is not a sealed, inert machine. It produces and responds to gradients, electrical, chemical, and electromagnetic. Your heart generates a measurable electromagnetic field. Your brain runs on electrochemical signals. Nerves transmit pulses that your muscles, skin, and internal organs respond to. When you move your attention, when you breathe differently, or when you mentally prime a direction, you change those gradients. Those changes can alter the information arriving at the skin, particularly the palms, which are densely innervated and exquisitely sensitive. The palms are biological instruments. They evolved to manipulate the environment, to sense temperature, texture, pressure. In my experience coaching and running experiments, they also act like transceivers, sensors that tell you what your internal state is doing in relation to the external world. That doesn't require quantum mechanics to be meaningful. It's anatomy and physiology. But we'll use the language of field and observer effect later as a bridge to a broader model. Always carefully, always qualified. Let's expand that initial observation into a small experimental protocol you can repeat right now and in the days ahead. I'll call this the instant field test. Instant field test, step by step. 1. Prepare. Find a comfortable chair or stand. Make sure your hands are free and dry. Have a small notebook or phone ready to record 2 short lines, time and sensation. 2. Warm. Rub palms briskly for 7-12 seconds to increase blood flow and sensory awareness. 3. Space. Separate hands to a comfortable distance where you can still see the gap between them without strain. 4. Baseline. With eyes open and breathing normal, notice any sensation for 30-60 seconds. Record 1 sentence. 5. Focus. Close your eyes. Take 3 gentle breaths. On the 3rd breath, project a simple intention, e.g., I'll test for pressure, and observe for another 30-60 seconds. Record the 2nd sentence. 6. Compare. Note the differences. Timestamp your entry. Do this 3 times across the day, morning, midday, evening, for the first week, and log everything. No embellishment. Sensation, time, context. Caffeinated, hungry, tired. This is how you develop a dataset about your own embodied field. People sometimes ask, is this just placebo? That's a fair question. Placebo accounts for many things, including physiological change from expectation. But placebo is not fake. It's a real psychophysiological pathway. What matters is reproducibility. Later in this program, we'll introduce a set of low-risk verification tools. A plant you observe for growth changes, a simple consumer electronic noise generator as a rudimentary feedback device, and the habit of journaling with timestamps so you can see patterns at 24 hours, 7 days, and 30 days. For now, your hands and notebook are your instruments. Let's be honest about names and ideas floating around this space. There are scientists, clinicians, and independent researchers who explore the edges where biology and information meet. Groups like the HeartMath Institute have explored heart-brain communication and coherence, and several theorists, some controversial, some mainstream, have speculated about the role of quantum processes in biological systems. For instance, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have proposed hypotheses about microtubules in neurons possibly playing a role in consciousness. That idea is debated and far from established consensus. Other voices like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza have popularized mind-body interaction ideas, sometimes blending anecdote, experiment, and interpretation in ways that invite criticism as well as curiosity. I reference these names because they appear in the conversation, but wherever they appear in our work, we'll treat them as suggestive leads, interesting hypotheses to test, not settled facts. Here's the pragmatic takeaway. You don't need physics papers to continue. You need consistent measurement and a model that explains your results sufficiently well to allow reproducible action. The model I use, the secret quantum law, is precisely that, a working model. It's a synthesis that treats attention as an information emitter, the hands as local sensors, transceivers, and your autonomic nervous system as the amplifier and context setter. In the coming segments, I'll show you how to use that model to direct attention with intention, and then how to modulate your biology to strengthen the signal. Before we go further, a short note on ethics and intent. Any technique that changes influence and perception can be misused. In this framework, the principle we operate by is simple: aim to serve. The mirror idea is operational here. What you broadcast energetically tends to return in equivalent measure, shaped by context, action, and probability. Use this method for alignment, for clarifying your actions, for increasing coherence between who you are and what you do. Do not use it as a shortcut to manipulate or coerce someone against their will. That's both ethically wrong and practically unstable. Now, let me sketch the shape of how the pieces fit together, so your curiosity has context. You just experienced the first pillar, sense. That's the input stage. The second pillar is direct. That's the mental choreography, visual rehearsal, emotional embodiment, and sustained attention, what I will call collapsing probability in a metaphorical sense. The third pillar is amplify. The body practices, respiration, vagal tone, heart coherence, that increase your system's ability to maintain and transmit the directed state. In this first part of the masterclass, we are anchoring the sense pillar. We want palpable evidence. People who skip this step and jump straight to visualization or breathwork often report inconsistent results. Why? Because the sensor must be tuned. The palms tell you whether the system is registering the broadcast. It's like testing a radio's antenna before you tune a frequency. Let me give you an everyday analogy that clarifies the mechanics without pretending to be physics. Imagine you own a small Bluetooth speaker. The speaker will only play clearly if three things are aligned. The source device is broadcasting on the same channel, the speaker's antenna is functioning, and there's enough power to sustain the transmission. In this analogy, your mind is the source device. Your palms and sensory nervous system are the antenna, and your autonomic regulation, breath, heart rate variability, metabolic state, is the power supply. If any of these is out of sync, the signal is noisy, inconsistent, or absent. Here's a simple check you can do to test the antenna hypothesis. Find a lightweight object, a small compass, a feather, a tiny strip of paper, and observe its movement in your environment. Hold the object in one hand, and in the other, perform the instant field test. Does the object behave differently when you're focused versus when you're distracted? Again, this is not about proving metaphysics instantly. It's about observing correlation, building a log, and repeating. In the following sessions, I'll show you how to structure more controlled trials that minimize bias. A few common pitfalls at this stage: over-expectation, analysis paralysis, and performance anxiety. All three can obscure subtle sensation. If you push too hard to make it happen, you often create internal tension that blocks detection. Conversely, if you dismiss the possibility out of hand, you may fail to notice small but real signals. The posture we want is one of curious testing, neither desperate belief nor scoffing denial. Now let's make this immediate practical work more durable. From tonight through the next 30 days, you will run a small rhythm. The first 3 days are diagnostic. Instant field test 3 times a day. Note patterns and variables. Did you drink coffee? Were you stressed? Days 4-14 are exploratory. Experiment with small variations, hand distance, breath rate, ambient temperature, and record how each change affects sensation. Days 15 to 30 are committed practice. Choose the combination that gave you the clearest signal and make it your daily 20-minute sequence. 5 minutes hands practice, 10 minutes directed visualization, 5 minutes coherence breathwork. That sequence is not arbitrary. It maps onto the 3 pillars and creates conditions for neuroplastic change. You're probably wondering about timelines. Based on anecdotal reports and structured small group work, the following are experiential benchmarks, not promises. Within 5 minutes, you'll often notice a subtle shift in sensation. Within 24 hours, you may have a clearer subjective sense or a small incidental synchronicity. By 7 days, your nervous system often begins to pattern toward easier detection. And by 30 days, many people report measurable changes in habit, mood, or intentional outcomes. Notice the language: typical, reported, anecdotal. Results vary. That's the honest framing. It's time to bring this home with a short, refined practice you can do right now to lock in the learning loop. We'll repeat and slightly refine what you did before, adding one small observational layer. Refined field practice. 1. Center. Take 1 minute to settle. Sit tall. Relax shoulders. Ground your feet. 2. Warm and space. Rub palms. 8 to 10 seconds. Separate them into the sensing distance that felt most responsive in your earlier trials. 3. Anchor. Choose a simple neutral anchor word. Now, here, or open. Say it silently once to connect attention. 4. Scan. With soft eyes, sweep attention across the hands and the space between them. Name any sensation without judgment: pressure, tingle, warmth. None. 5. Shift. On a gentle exhale, imagine a small circle of light appearing in the gap. Hold that image for 45-60 seconds. If nothing appears, simply observe the absence. 6. Record. Immediately log single-line observation. Time, sensation, anchor word, one word for emotional tone, e.g., curious, skeptical, calm. That last step, logging, is what converts experience into evidence. Without it, everything becomes an anecdote. We'll pause here for a momentary reflection. You've now done 2 sensory trials, learned how to record, and mapped a small experimental rhythm. You've also seen why the palms become central instruments in this practice. The next step, which we begin to sketch now and will expand in the next segment, is how to intentionally direct that sensed field toward concrete, measurable goals. That is the direct pillar, the mental choreography that makes your intention function like a frequency. But before I take you deeper into the protocol, there are 2 important caveats I must state clearly. First, this is not medical advice. If you have a medical condition, consult a qualified professional. Second, this is not a guaranteed route to wealth, miraculous cure, or mind control. The techniques we cultivate increase coherence, attention, and alignment, and that often creates practical results. But nothing here substitutes for informed action, ethical behavior, or professional treatment when required. One more note on science and language. You will hear the term quantum used a lot in this conversation. In physics, quantum mechanics describes behavior at the scale of atoms and subatomic particles. Translating quantum ideas to everyday life is tricky and often misused. When I use quantum in the phrase secret quantum law, I'm using it as a conceptual metaphor and as a nod to legitimately emergent research about information processing in biological systems. There are intriguing hypotheses. Some researchers suggest quantum effects could play roles in photosynthesis, bird navigation, or possibly aspects of neural function. But these are active areas of inquiry and not settled truths. My approach is pragmatic. Borrow the language where it helps clarify a mechanism, but always test in the lab of your life. To give you a preview of what's coming next, in the following section, we'll formalize a step-by-step mental protocol for directing intention. It will have 3 parts. Choose a measurable target. Craft a sensory-rich mental rehearsal and anchor the emotional state that aligns with successful realization. You'll run short, 60-second experiments that become more precise over time. I'll give scripts you can use, plus troubleshooting for common blocks like mental chatter, impatience, and doubt. Right now, close the loop on the work you just did. Look at your notes. If you discovered anything, even a whisper of sensation, highlight it. If it was blank, highlight that too. Either way, you've created a baseline. That baseline is where transformation begins, not in dramatic miracles, but in tiny, repeatable changes that accumulate. Lastly, remember the ethical frame. Keep a clear intention to act in ways that help others, to align your aims with service, and to treat this method as one tool among many. When used responsibly, it strengthens judgment, increases focus, and can accelerate real-world action. When misused or applied out of greed or coercion, it becomes unstable and often rebounds. We've now laid the foundation, the experiential test, the data habit, and a preliminary map of how the pieces fit. The next section will move us from sensing to directing, the practical techniques that let you collapse probability in a focused way. We will unpack the three-brain model in detail, give you precise mental choreography, and run a guided 10-15-minute visualization that many people report as transformational the first time they do it. If you're ready, prepare your notebook and a quiet space. We're about to move from observation to action, and that's where the secret quantum law becomes a usable model rather than a fascinating idea. If you're ready, settle in. Put your notebook where it's easy to reach. Close any tabs that will pull your attention. This next section is where intention becomes technique, where the sensation you felt between your palms gets a job to do. Let me begin with a clear map of the machinery we'll use. You've already met the first pillar, sense, the palms as your local detector. Now I want to unfold the second pillar in practical terms. Think of this as a three-part transmitter system that must be coordinated for any reliable effect. The hands as sensors, transceivers, the mind as the emitter and director, and the body, the autonomic nervous system, as the amplifier and stabilizer. I call this the three-brain model. It's not mystical jargon. It's a functional architecture you can test and tune. The palms, you've felt them. You've learned to record them. They are densely innervated areas optimized for fine discrimination. When you attend to the space between your hands, those nerves give you high-resolution feedback about subtle gradients of temperature, pressure, and electrical activity. The mind, your thoughts, images, and the emotional tone that accompanies them are the broadcaster. Neuroscience describes neural patterns as electrical and chemical events. From a functional perspective, high-focus mental rehearsal is a coherent, repeatable pattern your nervous system can produce on demand. This is what we direct. The body, your vagus nerve, heart rhythm, breath, and metabolic state determine the gain. How strongly your internal signal reverberates through your tissues and into the environment. When the body is calm and regulated, the signal is clearer and lasts longer. When it's chaotic, stressed, exhausted, hypoglycemic, the signal is noisy. This triad, sense, mind, body, is the usable frame for the secret quantum law. The law itself is best described for now as a practical proposal. When attention, structured thought, sensor tuning, hands, and physiological coherence, regulated autonomic state, align, outcomes that are probabilistic become weighted differently in practice. That is, the odds tilt toward the intended result, often in ways that are noticeable and repeatable. That tilt is what we're engineering. Now the central skill, directing intention. I'll teach you a repeatable mental choreography that you can use for small, measurable targets. We keep the targets small because early wins build patterning and neuroplastic change. We don't chase miracles. We design experiments, the direct protocol, step by step. 1. Target selection. Pick one small, verifiable outcome. Examples: a specific text from a friend within 24 hours, a parking spot, a houseplant producing a new leaf by day 7, a particular page turning in a book you touch. The key characteristics: measurable, low stakes, not harmful to anyone, and able to be time-stamped. 2. Sensory script. Create a short, sensory-rich scene in your imagination that includes all 5 senses where possible. Don't narrate abstractly, rehearse detail. If your target is, a friend texts me the word yes, imagine the exact notification sound, the weight of your phone in your hand, the light on the screen, the shape of the letters, how your chest loosens as you read it, the smell of the room where you receive it. 3. Emotional load. Attach a small, specific emotion that matches the outcome. Emotions are amplifiers. Gratitude, calm joy, quiet confidence. Pick something that feels aligned and sustainable, not manic desire or desperation. Desperation is a hostile tone. Calm confidence resonates. Imagine the emotional state as an internal temperature that colors the scene. 4. Anchoring gesture. Combine the visualization with a physical anchor. This can be your hands at sensing distance, a single finger pressed lightly to your sternum, or a soft vocalization of a short anchor word, example, now or open. The anchor joins mind and body. 5. Temporal compression. Run the scene compressed in your imagination. Compressing duration is a trick the nervous system uses to rehearse outcomes efficiently. See the notification, feel it, embody the response, and finish with the emotion of gratitude, all within a concentrated minute. This trains the pattern without requiring hours. 6. Release. Conclude each visualization by relaxing your palms slightly and taking a neutral breath. Don't cling. Tension kills the signal. The act of release is crucial. It tells your system the rehearsal is complete and reduces grasping. 7. Record. Immediately log time, target, sensory details you used, and emotional tone. Even a single line in your notebook makes the practice auditable. Let's put this into a short script you can use when you do the mental rehearsal. Use the language that works for you. I'll give an option you can read aloud internally. Directing script. Read internally. Target, state target. I visualize the scene clearly, the sound, the light, the texture. I feel the small, steady emotion of choose, calm joy, gratitude, quiet confidence, as though the outcome has already occurred. My palms are open, my breath is even. I hold this image for 60 seconds, then I relax and let it go. Practical tip: be ruthlessly specific about the sensory details. The brain doesn't like vague instructions. Vague rehearsal leads to vague outcomes. Specific rehearsal generates specific neural firing patterns, which in turn create more consistent bodily states. This is the neuroplastic engine. Repeated, precise rehearsal builds circuits that bias perception and behavior. Now, a pragmatic test you can run in under 2 minutes to feel the process in miniature. Pick the smallest possible target. For instance, that within the next hour you will notice a particular color of car pass by your window. Use the directing script above for 60 seconds, then go about your day and mark whether the car appeared. Run this experiment 3 times in a single day with 3 different targets. Note how focus, sensory detail, and emotion vary with your success rate. Don't take any one success as mystical. Take all of it as data. We're now ready for a longer guided visualization that integrates the hands, the sensory script, and emotional anchoring. This will be more extended. Plan for about 10 to 15 minutes for a deep run. If you prefer shorter iterations, break it into 3 5-minute micro-sessions. Either way, protect the space and treat it as practice time. The quality of the practice matters more than the raw duration. Guided visualization. Full choreography. Settle into your posture. Place your hands in the sensing position you determined earlier. palms facing a comfortable gap. Allow your shoulders and jaw to soften. Breathe gently. Remember your anchor word. Phase 1. Grounding. Begin by bringing attention to your feet and the points supporting you. Notice weight and contact. Breathe in a way that lengthens the exhale slightly compared to the inhale. This cues the body toward parasympathetic balance without forcing breath retention. Spend a minute noting the difference between the top of your head and the soles of your feet. Let any chatter pass like weather. Phase 2. Sensory tuning. Rub your palms together briefly, then settle into the gap. With soft eyes or closed, sweep attention across the skin of your hands. Notice temperature, texture, and any subtle currents. Name each sensation almost clinically. Tingle, pressure, warmth, coolness, nothing. This non-judgmental naming reduces emotional noise and sharpens perception. Phase 3. Target construction. Bring your chosen target into precise focus. Build the scene step by step. Sight, sound, smell, taste if relevant, and the kinesthetic feelings. Make the scene as concrete as possible. Allow the image to gain clarity like a photograph coming into focus. If thoughts intrude, note them and return to the specific sensory detail. Phase 4. Emotional embodiment. Once the scene is stable, invite the chosen emotion. Do not amplify it artificially. Let it arise as a subtle tone within the chest. Imagine that emotion as a warm light behind your sternum. Notice how it softens your facial muscles, changes your posture, and alters the space between your hands. This emotional field is your amplifier. Phase 5. Transmit. With palms open and the image vivid, imagine that warm light condensing into a pinpoint within the gap between your hands. Feel the current of attention push gently toward that point. If you sensed a physical flow during the instant field test, tune into that same quality now. Hold the image, the feeling, and the hand position for the full length of the rehearsal. If your mind wanders, gently bring it back to the specific sensory detail you rehearsed. Phase 6. Fold and release. After the rehearsal, mentally fold the scene inward. Imagine the outcome nesting inside your chest as a finished event. Then, deliberately release your palms and take 3 easy breaths. Say your anchor word, if you use one, and close the session by recording the time and 2 short lines, target and emotional tone. This guided run is the heart of the direct pillar. Do it once or twice daily for the first week. Then gradually compress into a single focused rehearsal in the morning or evening as you find rhythm. The choreography is what trains the nervous system to hold and release intention in a predictable way. Let me emphasize a mechanism that's often misunderstood. When I say collapse probability, I'm using a metaphor. We are not claiming to rewrite fundamental quantum mechanics from your living room. What we are doing is altering the informational and physiological context in which events occur, and because many events are probabilistic by nature, someone choosing to text, a parking spot becoming available, shifting that context changes conditional probabilities in practice. Think of it as fine-tuning the conditions that make a particular outcome more likely, not as ripping a hole in physical law. Now, let's talk about amplification. How to make that directed rehearsal durable so you don't have to micromanage intention every time you want something to go right. The body provides leverage, heart rhythm, vagal tone, breath patterning, and metabolic stability amplify and sustain the signal. This is the amplify pillar, safe coherence breath pattern. One of the most accessible and safe ways to increase coherence is through paced breathing, designed to gently slow heart rate and balance vagal tone. Here's a simple pattern that is widely used and low risk for most people. Sit or stand comfortably. Inhale smoothly through the nose for a count that feels natural and gentle, a moderate count that does not strain. Exhale slowly and fully through the nose or mouth, allowing the out-breath to be slightly longer than the in-breath. Repeat for 5 minutes, monitoring comfort. If you feel lightheaded, return to a normal breathing pattern. A slightly fuller version that many people find effective uses a rhythm like a comfortable inhale, a soft pause if that feels good, do not strain, and a longer exhale, always staying within personal comfort. The goal is not maximum breath control, it's gentle rhythming to reduce sympathetic arousal. If you have respiratory conditions, cardiovascular conditions, or are pregnant, consult a medical professional before practicing paced breathing. Heart coherence practice. Simple. Heart coherence refers to a state where heart rhythm patterns become smooth and ordered, and people often report enhanced emotional clarity during this state. You can practice a brief coherence exercise as follows. Bring attention to the area around the heart. Breathe slowly, with an emphasis on a soft exhale. While breathing, recall a genuine small memory of appreciation or gratitude, something real and not forced. Hold that feeling lightly for 60 seconds while maintaining steady breathing. Notice any change in the space between your palms and in your sense of focus. These practices don't require specialized devices, though heart rate monitors and consumer HRV apps can give you feedback if you want to quantify changes. Use such tools as optional feedback, not as the source of truth. Why the biology matters. When you are coherent, meaning your nervous system is regulated, you can hold higher quality attention for longer. That sustained attention reduces internal noise, which makes the mind's rehearsal more exact, which in turn tunes the palm's sensory calibration. The 3 parts reinforce each other. Now let's stitch everything into the daily 20-minute protocol I recommended earlier. This routine is specifically designed to be practical and repeatable. Daily 20-minute practice, template, 5 minutes, hands practice, warm, space, baseline scan, short anchor, 10 minutes, directed visualization, sensory script, emotional embodiment, transmit. 5 minutes, coherence breathing and gentle closure, gratitude anchor, release. This sequence is deliberately short enough to be sustainable and long enough to produce neurochemical and behavioral shifts. It maps onto the 3 pillars and can be flexed to suit your schedule. Do it twice for a morning plus evening rhythm or once for consolidation. 30-day challenge and milestones. If you adopt the daily practice, here's a pragmatic roadmap of what many people report as typical phases. Again, these are experiential benchmarks, not guarantees. Days 1-3, diagnostic phase. You gather baseline data, how easy is sensing, what variables affect detection, and how the initial exercises land in your physiology. Days 4-14, exploratory phase. You adjust variables, hand distance, breath rate, anchor words, target types. You experiment with different sensory scripts and log outcomes. Days 15-21, patterning phase. Your nervous system starts favoring the practiced patterns. Detection often becomes easier. Directed rehearsals feel more vivid. Small coincidences may occur. Days 22-30, consolidation phase. Habits stabilize. Many people report that their intentional practice influences behavior, focus, and opportunistic events more reliably. You should have a clear data set, time-stamped notes, illustrating at least subtle shifts. Suggested metrics to record. Sensation score on a 0 to 5 scale. How strong was the sensation between your palms? Target success. Binary. Happened, did not happen, with timestamp. Emotional tone, a single word. Environmental variables. Caffeine, sleep quality, stress level. Notes. Any strong synchronicities, dreams, or changes in behavior. The practice is cumulative. Small gains compound. If you maintain the daily 20-minute rhythm and keep a journal, you create reproducible conditions for change. Let's address experimentation in a slightly more controlled way. If you want to build stronger evidence beyond subjective reporting, here are a few low-risk tests you can run that minimize obvious bias and remain safe. Simple plant test. Low-tech. Acquire 2 similar potted plants and label them A and B. For 30 days, spend 3 minutes daily near plant A performing a short hands practice and directed appreciation visualization for its health. No claims of miraculous growth. This is a gentle, consistent care practice. Do not perform the practice near plant B. Merely water both similarly and place them in comparable light. Record growth markers weekly. New leaves, height measures, soil moisture, and general vigor. Photograph both plants from the same angle each week for a visual log. This test examines whether focused attention and consistent presence correlate with observable differences. It's not a proof of metaphysics, it's a low-cost field test of correlation under controlled conditions. RNG, Consumer Feedback Device, rudimentary. If you're curious about objective devices, consumer-grade random number generators and simple electronic noise devices can provide a basic readout. Use them only as a curiosity tool and follow the manufacturer's safety guidelines. Design short trials, randomize conditions, focus versus no focus, and log timestamps. Too many people set up biased experiments. Keep trials randomized and documented. Ethics and responsible use. You now hold knowledge that alters influence and perception. That knowledge carries an ethical burden. Use it to align with service, clarity, and integrity. Do not attempt to manipulate or coerce others. Techniques that increase influence should be matched by increased responsibility. The mirror principle remains. What you broadcast often returns to you in some form. Limitations and scientific context. When we use words like quantum or refer to research on microtubules, entanglement, or other quantum biology ideas, I do so as a conceptual bridge, not as an assertion that professional physics has validated mind-as-controller claims. Some researchers, such as Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, have proposed theories about quantum processes in neurons, for example, in microtubules. These ideas are intriguing and contested. They remain hypotheses. Institutions and groups like the HeartMath Institute have published work on heart-brain interactions, coherence, and suggestion-based physiology. Other voices like Bruce Lipton or Joe Dispenza present popular interpretations that blend anecdote, theory, and practice. Treat each of these as leads. I recommend you verify primary sources if you plan to quote them publicly. This script flags those names in your notes as references to check before dissemination. Practical troubleshooting. No sensation at all. Reduce expectation pressure. Do shorter, more frequent sessions. Check hydration, blood sugar, and recent caffeine intake. Try the practice after a light walk when circulation is improved. Strong but inconsistent sensation. Keep a log and look for environmental variables. Are you more sensitive in the morning, after meals? If variability remains, standardize conditions and retest. Overwhelm or anxiety during practice. Shorten sessions and incorporate grounding exercises. Feel your feet, notice ambient sounds, and use breath to reduce intensity. Skeptical partner or social friction. Keep the practice personal and low stakes. Share results only when you have documented patterns. Frequently asked questions, practical answers. Q. Will this cure my illness? A no technique here is a medical treatment. These practices can support regulation, stress reduction, and behavioral alignment, all of which may complement professional care. Always follow medical advice and check with a provider for health concerns. Q. Can I use this to control someone's decision? Intention practice works best for alignment and personal change. Attempting to override another person's agency is unethical and practically unreliable. Focus on influencing your own actions and creating conditions where mutual consent and clarity can emerge. Q. How long until I see results? A. Many people report subtle sensations within minutes, minor synchronicities within 24 to 72 hours, and more consistent patterns by 7 to 30 days. These are typical reported benchmarks, not guarantees. Keep precise records. Q. What about the skeptics who say it's all placebo? A placebo is a real psychobiological effect. If changing attention, expectation, and behavior produces measurable change for you, the mechanism matters less in the short term than replicability. Use rigorous journaling to distinguish placebo-like expectation effects from consistent, predictable outcomes. Scaling practice into life. Once the 30-day window is complete, choose a maintenance rhythm that fits you. For many people, a single consolidated 20-minute practice daily paired with micro-rehearsals before key events, a presentation, a difficult conversation, a creative task, is powerful. The rehearsal functions like an athlete's visualization. It presets the nervous system for a desired pattern of performance. Community and documentation. If you choose to share results publicly, do it with rigor. Timestamp entries, include environmental variables, and report both successes and failures. Share measurable metrics rather than grand claims. This creates a community culture of careful inquiry rather than anecdotal promotion. A few final experimental setups you can try if you want to be methodical. Time-locked text experiment. Choose a friend who consents to being part of an experiment. Create a randomized schedule of potential text words and test whether directed rehearsal increases the probability of receiving one specific word over a week. Always obtain consent and keep the experiment low stakes. Coin flip micro test. Set up a coin flip or randomizer app with time-locked trials where your only variable is focused intention versus neutral weighting. Keep trial counts reasonable and randomized to reduce bias. Safety reminders and boundaries. Do not practice breath-holding or extreme breath maneuvers without proper training. If you feel lightheaded, dizzy, or uncomfortable during any breathing exercise, return to normal breathing immediately and sit down. If you have a history of seizures, cardiovascular instability, or psychiatric conditions, consult a health professional before engaging in extended or emotionally intense practices. A closing synthesis. You began this session with a simple test. Feel the space between your hands and note it. That curiosity was the seed. From here, we taught a structured way to direct attention, choosing measurable targets, crafting sensory-rich rehearsals, anchoring emotion, and coordinating the body's physiological state to amplify and sustain the signal. The secret quantum law, as I frame it, is not a mystical decree. It's a practical operating system. Tune your senses, refine your intentions, and regulate your physiology. Do that repeatedly, and you create a living laboratory where probability tilts in predictable ways. If you do the work, small steps, daily rhythm, sober documentation, you will collect your own evidence. That is the heart of transformation in this model. Not belief, but reproducible practice. Use the first few days to be a careful scientist of your own life. Timestamp everything, be ruthless about noting variables, and favor humility over hype. Before I close, one necessary reminder. Know your motives. Power without wisdom is error-prone. Orient your aims towards service, clarity, and integrity. The mirror principle will reflect back not only results, but the character of the intention behind them. If you commit to the 30-day proof protocol I outlined, the diagnostic days, the exploratory phase, and the consolidation sequence, you will emerge with one of three outcomes: clearer sensory attunement, more disciplined attention and coherence, or a refined appreciation for the limits and possibilities of applied intention. All three are wins. All are real. Now, if you're ready to take that step, commit to the 30 days. When you begin, comment "activated" below, and at day 30, report one measurable result. No need for tall tales. A time-stamped anecdote is perfect. That one act of commitment transforms a casual experiment into a disciplined practice and invites a communal exchange of data. Go ahead, set your timer, prepare your notebook, and choose your first small target. The experiment begins when you do. Thank you for taking this journey seriously. Use these methods wisely. Be generous with what you discover. The secret quantum law that truly transforms reality forever, in my view, is less a hidden physics trick and more the disciplined practice of aligning attention, sensation, and physiology so that your choices reliably shape your lived experience. Do that, and the world around you will begin to look different, not by magic, but by design. If you've been listening, now is the moment to act. Commit, journal, observe. And when you have a result, share it with the community at day 30. I'll be watching for your activated comments and for the careful data you bring.